Hello, everybody. I'm Max Gaspari, and I'll be chairing the SMPTE 2018 storage session. Thank you for coming. It's the last session of the day, but we'll be giving out extra drink tickets at the end of the end of the session, so incentive to stay and ask questions. Our first presenter is Tom Coughlin, president of the Coughlin Associates. Tom will present the results of the 9-year survey about storage for the media and entertainment industry. We will learn about storage usage, technology trends, and requirements for the entertainment industry. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, Max. I am Tom Coughlin, and I'm going to talk to you about 9 years of media and entertainment storage surveys, or 9 years before the survey. It's kind of interesting doing this. Actually, it started in 2009, so I missed a year to do 9 years there instead of 10. And here's an outline. We'll talk a little bit about the demographics and what's involved, people where they were, what they were doing in media and entertainment. They're all professional media and entertainment folks involved in here. In fact, we had the participants, SMPTE sent out an invitation for folks to participate in this, as well as other folks, like EBU and other people as well. Then we'll talk about some of the different parts of the workflow and survey information from that. Also, we'll be getting some information from the report that I also do on digital storage and media and entertainment. I have some flyers if you're interested in that later on. So I have a few pieces of data from that to share with you as well. And so we'll cover content capture, post-production, content delivery, preservation, archiving, and then finally looking at the individual storage media, hard disk drives, for instance, tape, optical discs, et cetera, capacity and revenue, and media and entertainment applications, and then finally just some generalization on major trends. So first of all, here's just a simplified view of what, workflow that oftentimes, if you have any size of facility at all, you've probably got some shared storage that people are working across. Nowadays, it may be local as well as in the cloud. If you're a smaller facility, of course, then maybe you just have everything at workstations, but generally have input of various sorts of content. Then you have the various types of processing that people do in all the post-production processing, including Max wanted to make sure audio, so I put that in there. And then finally, if you want to make money on this, you've got to get it out to people, so there's transcoding into various formats to go into the different distribution channels. And then finally, this stuff has value, so therefore there's a need to archive it in the end. So this is the various parts that we'll be talking about here. So here's some of the demographics. So we've done this for 9 years, and every year there's a different mix of the people that have taken this, although they're all involved in various aspects of media and entertainment. So what I'm showing here is the 2018 results. Primarily this year, this is earlier this year from January, I believe, to May, if I remember right, of 2018. They're mostly from North America, about 86%. The next one was Europe at 6.8%, and then China and the rest of Asia about 4.6%. This has varied over the years, depending upon who participated in the survey. One time we did have somebody from Antarctica who said they were in there. That's why I kept that on there. There's various size facilities in this year's survey were here. So a lot of them were smaller facilities, 1 to 10 people. And then 11 to 100 people was about 25%, 66% at 1 to 10. 101 to 500 people was about 6.2%. And then larger was about 2.5% beyond that. There weren't a lot of the really large facilities with over 1,000 people. There had been in some of the prior years. So this year, like last year actually, was a lot more of the smaller shops or people doing activities. And this was the various professional video projects that they worked on. The largest ones was the corporate and government video, short features, commercials, and trailers, and then the corporate and government video feature film, episodics, webcasts, other TV, other things, and then games was the smallest in this year's survey. And I think in the paper I may give a little more explanation of the demographics over the years, so you can take a look at that if you want more information on that. and also explaining how the differences from year to year may vary depending upon, for instance, the size of facilities that people had. So this is looking then at the content acquisition side. So one of the things we asked was, what are the storage devices that you're using, in this case, for your cameras? This year, we found about 56% was flash memory. Hard disk drives was about 35%. Film was 5%, which actually is up from prior years. Magnetic tape at 2%, and optical disc at 2%. So here's the 2018 survey results here: 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 9 here. So we skipped 11, that 2011. That's the year we skipped. But you can see that there's some variation, again, depending year to year. But there's been a general trend for more and more solid-state memory being used in cameras, particularly, of course, if you're taking them out in the field, because then a nice rugged media makes a lot of sense. For a lot of people that are doing things in a studio, you could have it hooked up to a hard drive, an external hard drive, for example, and that can work perfectly well. So that's the next highest one beyond the flash memory. And you can see, again, the trends here. Film, of course, has dropped over the years. It had almost disappeared in the last survey, and then popped up again this year in the survey for some reason, 5% from 0.16%. That was surprising. And then magnetic tape has also declined. Again, on content acquisition, this is what we found this year, and here's a general plot of how many hours of content do you capture for 1 hour of completed work, okay? And so this is the breakdown we had here. Just a general summary is that 51% of the respondents to the survey said they captured 6 more hours of content for 1 hour of finished work. But you can see in actuality that some of the most popular ones is 2 to 5 hours per hour of finished work, 6 to 10, and even 11 to 50 hours. And then there were about 5% that were more than 50 hours per an hour of content. One time, actually, I gave an earlier version of this paper in 2014. I may have told the same anecdote there. One time I was actually I think it was in Yellowstone, and there was some guy who was doing nature video of cubs, wolf cubs, and he knew where the wolf cub den was, and he spent hours and hours just videoing the wolf cub den, hoping he could find some images of wolf cubs. So people will spend a lot of time, of course, doing these kind of projects, especially if they really love it. Now, this is a survey results, and how much of the content is born digital. It's digital right from the capture. And you can see that the percentage has, if you look especially at this 91 to 100%, it's increased considerably in terms of the amount of content over the years, from about 48% in 2010 to about between 91 to 100%, between 48 to 77% by 2018. Notice the general trend is got these tools. They've made the work a lot cheaper. A lot more people are using them, and they can do more stuff when you got digital content versus the earlier film content, at least by itself, without digitization. So let's see. And so this is actually one of the pieces from the report, trying to project, and partly this is informed by the survey, as well as other analysis and talking to people and reading things and thinking about how things are going. But this is looking at annual storage capacity growth for digital content acquisition from all the different sources, scanning, episodic, broadcast, independent movie, mid-budget movie, high-end movies, going from 2017 in the report up to 2023. And by 2023, we're projecting this could approach 70 exabytes of storage capacity that's used for content acquisition creation by 2023. This is being driven by some move to 8K video, using multiple cameras, 8K video with higher frame rates, using multiple cameras to capture content. There's even downstairs in the exhibit areas people showing things like that. In fact, there's just a robotic camera in the AI session over here. They were showing robotic cameras, a whole bunch of them that could cover a scene. So all these things are going to generate a fair amount of content they're going to need, and this is basically the capacity growth estimated in order to meet at least what I see as the requirements that people would have. Now, so that was the content acquisition side. Now let's move to the post-production side of things. And so here's kind of an idealization of what that might look like. So we've got an editing station of some sort of workstation where somebody does whatever their activities are. And they might have some local memory, like DRAM, and they may have some local storage. In fact, if it's a very small facility or some person working in their home, they may just have a USB or a Thunderbolt drive that's hooked up to their Mac, for instance. But if they're in a larger facility or they're doing collaborative work, then you want to hook up to a network. So you need some way to access a network, perhaps to get a localized network storage, which could be block-based or could be file-based. Some larger facilities are using, are using SAN devices where it's more block-based, and then others are using NAS devices, which are file-based. But they're also, and particularly for collaborative work that's going to span continents and time zones, people do a lot of stuff in the cloud, or at least put content up there that can be used elsewhere. And in fact, for some activities like rendering and things of that sort, there actually is a very popular application for cloud computing is to do that, as well as transcoding, for example. We see an increasing amount of cloud storage for these collaborative workflows. The other interesting thing is, actually talked about with Andy about every year, you're seeing more people using flash memory, buying more flash memory for these devices, and talking with other people as well. It finally seems like there's getting to be, the cost is down far enough, and the performance, especially with the NVMe interface, it's been becoming popular now, that you can start to use these perhaps in workflows, and especially with higher resolution, higher frame rate videos, that the data rates required actually are making that popular. So flash memory is becoming a bigger factor in editing and other these part of the workflows. So let's look at some of the survey results here. This again is for digital editing, post-production of various sorts. And these are, they show some consistent stories and some are not. We had, in terms of the direct attached storage, that's like the USB drive or the Thunderbolt drive, that it declined. It seemed like, in general, it declined a little bit over the years, but it's sort of stabilized. People still use direct attached storage. It's very convenient. And if you're working in a facility, a sneaker net may be a fast way of getting something around to somebody. Still works. We found that NAS and SAN bounced around a bit, actually, over the years, but still seem to be fairly consistent. In fact, if you went to the size of facility, as the size of the facility in terms of the number of people in it from the survey results increased, we saw higher incidences of network attached storage and some decline in direct attached storage, but it never totally disappeared. So everyone still seems to like some storage connected to their device. One thing we did see that seemed fairly consistent over the years is the growth in the use of cloud storage. And in particular, we asked how much cloud storage over a terabyte you have, and that number grew from about 27% in 2012 to 56%. This is of the people that use cloud storage, to 56% in 2018. So it's a general trend to be using more. A terabyte isn't that much, but there's a general trend to be using, larger amounts of storage. So DAS, SAN, NAS, direct attached, as well as the local network storage, have varied over the years. But the cloud storage does seem to be increasing in this post-production market. So here's, again, some of the report results, just to give you some idea here. This is looking at total capacity here. And actually, I thought I had captions on here. This is cloud storage. This is, let's see. Yeah, this one is cloud storage, I know that. I think this one is the network storage, or direct attached storage. This was the network storage, if I remember right. In 2018, 48% of the responding participants said they use cloud-based storage for their editing and post-production. In 2018, also 56% of the respondents say that a terabyte or more of storage capacity in the cloud, as you saw on that last slide. Now, moving into the distribution side of things, just a quick image of what a traditional content delivery system, a CDN, might look like. Now, there are other models of ways may do this. In the future, may have more disaggregated approaches, et cetera, but at least there's a lot of cloud services that offer this. Is still a popular model. You have an origin server, and then it serves out to local servers on the edge, which then serve out to individual consumers. Now, here's some of the content distribution survey results. In 2018, 39% of the survey participants said they used flash memory in their central delivery servers. I'm trying to track that as one of the things. And so, high-speed enterprise solid-state drives and other solid-state storage technologies, there's emerging memories out there as well. But but particularly this would be NAND-based stuff, is for content delivery was 48% in 2018. And internet distribution was the most popular way to view proxies. We asked a particular question on that. So here's some of these CDN survey results in terms of the hours on the CDN, how much is ingest per month, percentage on edge servers and where they're using flash memory. And you can see, for instance, going from 2009, here 2009 to 2018, that seems to be a general trend, especially the last few years, for using more flash memory in this application, although it does bounce around a bit. So we'll move into this actually is content archiving and popular storage media for this. We're going to talk about our magnetic tape, optical discs, and hard disk drives. And so here's some of the survey results here. So we saw external hard disk drives are a popular means, especially for a smaller facility, to be able to archive their content. In fact, there's a lot of people that have shelves in the back of their work areas that maybe are groaning under the weight of all these old USB drives. And so there's a fair number of people going through the years that have been using that. Digital tape is a popular means, especially for a larger facility that can facilitate to do that, and there's still a fair amount of that in this industry. Private and public cloud, we asked about that, and also disk-based local storage networks, optical disks, and others as well. So what we found, some general trends in 2018, 32% had more than 2,000 hours in a long-term archive. That was the average number. And the average annual analog conversion rate was about 4%. And that's this one right down here, and if you're close enough to be able to see the numbers, a little bit of bounce, but it's fairly consistent at right around 4 to 5% or so of existing analog contents being preserved per year. And here's some, I'm not going to go through all these because we wouldn't have time, but there's more data here to take a look if you download the presentation or the paper. So then looking at the particular types of storage media that you're using for archives, this was the 2018 results here. External hard disk drives at 54%, tape at 25%. This actually is a change from a few years ago where tape was more dominant. And they may have something to do with the size of facilities too that we were surveying, so I just want to put that caveat in there. But the other thing about hard disk drives, they can give you an active archive where you don't have to wait for a library to get a cartridge or optical to get a cartridge and put it into a reader in order to be able to access it. The next one here was local storage networks, and then private or public clouds, 6%, and then various optical disc formats, CD, Blu-ray discs, and DVD discs, and then room for other. I try to make that as small as possible by trying to guess what that could be, but there always seems to be one or two interesting things there. So for the last 2 years, the survey has shown hard disk drive percentage higher than magnetic tape, which reversed some earlier trends. Again, that may be because of the size of facilities that were in those surveys. Of the magnetic tape, LTO is the biggest percentage of the tape storage by the people who took the survey, at about 74% of the total. The growth in archiving content in the cloud it's increasing among survey participants. Some got cut off there. So here's from the report, results from the report, projections on archiving and conversion and preservation. And one of the trends that we think is happening is that the analog content that's going to be converted is the stock is starting to be reduced, okay? And it's either has been converted, is going to be converted, or else it's just going to rot and die. And therefore, as we move more into the future, we're going to be driven by the increasing size, in terms of it's going to be archived by the increasing size of the new content that's being created rather than historical content. And so that's what this trend shows here, but they're rather incredible numbers. You know, these are, 2023 here, that'd be 120 exabytes of data. So there's, large amounts of content. In fact, I've got another presentation to give sometime why close to an exabyte video projects within the 10 years, we might see pretty high-end ones, but with hundreds of petabytes of generated content, with the right assumptions. So we kind of looked at some of we've looked at all the different aspects from content capture to the post-production to the distribution and archiving. Let's look at some particular trends. One of them is cloud, the increasing use of the cloud. So this is looking at archiving, preservation, video on demand, distribution models of various sorts, in post-production here. And you can see increasing projections. This is a revenue projection here revenue of storage to be able to support these out to 2023. In the survey, 73% said they did proxy distribution through the internet. Easy for somebody to just look at a smaller resolution video through the internet. 6% said they archived on a private or public cloud in 2018. And 66% said they would use a private or public cloud for archiving in 2018. So it's really interesting that you know, this industry, which has always had a certain reservation to putting things in the cloud, you know, it's valuable content, they're worried about security. There seems to be a little, at least in those who took the survey, some greater satisfaction or willingness to do that. So this was 2017 used as a historical year to compare for growth in the future. So this is looking at 2017 media and entertainment storage, both from storage capacity and also by projected revenue share. So archiving and preservation in terms of total storage capacity was the largest at about 77%, as you might guess, because there's a lot of it and getting to be more. The next one was post-production was about 11% of the storage, acquisition 6.4, and distribution at 4.8. Of the revenue, however, although it was 77% of the capacity, it has to be low cost, and therefore it's about estimated about 35% of spending. The next one was content distribution. That's where you make the money, so you want to spend some money to make it. And post-production, and then the acquisition at 5%. And the market share of the various types of media, this is in particular the hard disk drives, flash, tape, and optical here. Hard disk drives in 2017, I believe, is about 71% of the total. Tape following at about 23%. Again, the dominance of archiving. And then optical is about 4.3%. There are people who like optical versus tape in this industry. In fact, I was just downstairs talking to people about that earlier. And then flash memory at 2%. Now, looking at flash memory in particular, where it is now and where we think it's going to go in the future, as the cost goes down and with the new interfaces, NVMe, and even fabrics based upon NVMe working over, for instance, Ethernet or fiber channel, that we believe it's going to be serving more and more purpose. So 81% revenue hard disk drives in 2017, flash at 14%, tape at 4%. By 2023, our projections, flash, the percentage of revenue is something like 27%. All this is based, of course, based upon believing that there's still advances in the storage capacities in, for instance, hard disk drives and tape as well. So tape is in at 2% from 4%, at least according to this projection. And where will this flash be used? Well, acquisition is going to be the dominant source in our projection, 71%, followed by post-production and then video on demand at about 7%. So, and of course, we mentioned before that flash memory used in professional video cameras, about 56 of survey participants in 2018. And in CDN questions, about 39% used flash memory on the edge servers in 2018. Edge servers, of course, may be out in the world. They aren't necessarily in a data center. In fact, there might be something interesting that happens with the 5G transformation, is that they're talking about making even cell towers small data centers in order to be able to serve edge content delivery. So that's a part of this as well. Flash memory might be a good option for that. So finally, just some general trends is that our workflows are demanding different types of storage depending upon the workflow. You know, how important is performance? How important is the cost of the content? The best combination of performance and cost is often attained by a combination of multiple devices together. People sometimes call that a hierarchy of storage, combining elements in that. And over these 9 years of surveys, we've seen media and entertainment professionals that have used a greater use of flash memory in many applications where the performance matters, especially as the resolutions and frame rates, et cetera, increase, particularly content capture, delivery, and more recently in post-production. Not saying the hard disk drives aren't playing a role, and will continue, and there's the developments and advances in hard disk drives that may also improve performance. But the solid state does have some potential advantages, particularly as the cost goes down. Cloud storage, public and private, play an increasingly important role in all aspects of professional media and entertainment. Inactive archives, often using hard disk drives, versus tape, as well as cloud storage, are becoming more popular. So anyway, there's some references there. The earlier work, 2014, that I presented back then, and then referring to this survey and the report. So I can take some questions if you want. Merrill,
Hi, Tom.
how you doing?
On, I think it was your second slide, you had a pie chart that showed the breakdown by different kinds of participants in the media and entertainment business.
Right.
And there's one up at the top that was games.
Whoops.
And I think you went past it, yeah.
I think I did. Yeah, there it
right
is.
there.
Yep.
And games are only at 3%.
Yes.
And I wondered about that because we heard a paper the other day that was talking about how games as a sport are growing like crazy.
Like
and
Twitch?
And they're bigger now than the movie industry and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I wondered why storage for games is so small. Is that because you don't get much of a response from people who are in the gaming business? Is that because the people who are making the games don't need a lot of storage? I mean, what's driving that to be such a small part when games are apparently a much larger part of the overall industry?
Well, that's interesting, Merrill. You know, I did not go out of my way to get the game guys in there. It's like, you know, I'd ask SMPTE members, would you like to do this? So part of it might depend on how many SMPTE members are doing game video, right? You know, we could approach like, you know, 3D or, you know, approach some of the game outfits. How do you, and it is becoming a big video market, and it's very, very popular, I agree with you. We did not reflect that in the survey, obviously. You can see from the number here. If you have some ideas on who we could contact, and then how do you define something as a professional game video? That's the other side of it versus, you know, sort of user-generated content.
Well, I guess the question, first of all, is what do you mean by games? When looking at the other categories, it looks like you're talking about the people who produce these kinds of things.
If you produce games, then that's definitely, you know, professional. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know, you talk about TV episodics, people don't do that at home. Feature films, they don't do that at home.
That's right.
Corporate and government, it's all professional.
Right.
So what about the game makers? And is it a case of there just aren't a lot of them and they don't use a lot of storage, or they're not adequately represented in your universe of people you ask about this? I mean,
I suspect it's a bit of both, because they probably aren't quite as demanding, because they're not, you know, if you're doing a game someone's going to play at home, you've got some bandwidth constraints to deal with. So they're probably, you know, the original content may be large, they might be compressing it, you know, so it might be some combination of both. But it also may reflect, for instance, how many SMPTE members are doing professional video games too. That was one of the pools.
so this is only SMPTE members?
No, it's not just SMPTE members. It was actually SMPTE members this year, and EBU I did not have, in prior years I've had interactions with them, but I didn't have good contacts this year. The guy I knew left. And also outfits like Digital Production Buzz and folks that served smaller video people as well. So if you have a good idea of somebody who's in the professional game, has good contacts, professional games, that might be a good group to reach out to, is to capture more of them as well. That would be very interesting, actually.
Yeah, just listening to you, I think you'd start with the big game companies. Electronic Arts was a name that comes to mind, and
Sure.
I'm sure there are a bunch of others.
Yeah. No, I didn't
Anyway.
I didn't try to particularly reach out to them, but it'd be interesting to see what they look like.
Yeah, I was just curious because it seemed like they were way underrepresented for what we heard the other day.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a good reason for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Merrill.
James Snyder, Library of Congress.
Hi, Dave. Oh, good to see you again.
So I've got 3 questions and maybe a comment, we'll see. So the first is hard drive capacity versus tape capacity. Is that units shipped or is that terabytes shipped?
Let's go to the particular one you're talking. So this is archiving you're talking about, right?
I'm talking period.
Period. Oh, it depends upon the chart, and I usually identify
Sure.
if it's revenue or it's capacity.
Yeah.
So it varies by chart.
So I guess what I'm not seeing here is I'm not seeing, you know, what it really means.
Yeah, this one was actually asking, I have to look at the particular questions, actually asking the percentage of these media that you used for archiving.
So was that units shipped or terabytes shipped?
I think it was capacity, if I remember right.
So So that would be terabytes shipped.
That'd be terabytes, yeah.
Okay, and then in the cloud part, in the various cloud parts, did you take a look at what's inside the cloud? Because all cloud is physical media. The
It's all in a data center.
The
yeah.
question is, what physical media is just on somebody else's prem?
I-
Did you, in other words, those numbers would change, I would think, slightly at least, because the public or private cloud actually is those other things.
It is.
Did you take a look at that at all?
I think the way to break that down might be if you ask about, where you're using a higher performance cloud, higher performance or lower performance cloud, like Glacier, flash storage in the cloud versus Glacier, for example. I did not ask that in particular, but it is something that might be, today especially, might be worth trying to explore.
Yeah, I would think
It's
so.
already a long survey, though, so
Yeah. Well, and my final question is, of course, it went right out of my head.
and by the way, if you know some good people to contact to take this for the future, I'd love to.
Oh, I have plenty of folks you can talk to.
All right, let's talk.
My last question is,
Yes.
you said that migrated tapes are going to fall by 2023, and that's not the numbers we see. We did a survey a number of years ago that says that there's probably north of 100 million videotapes around the world. And so,
let's see.
I can tell you we're 4% into our 1.5 million at 9 years of migration.
That must be here somewhere that you saw that.
Yeah.
Where, do you know which item it was?
Well,
You've got a good eye. Those are
first was
small
the
numbers.
analog conversion rate, but then you had another one that said it's going to drop by 2023, which was a bar chart.
Bar chart,
Might be on the next one. Had purple in it.
No, that was
No?
the long-term archives and various media.
So I guess my question is, where did you get that number from? Because, the number that we've taken from cultural.
This one?
No, it
The
was
thing
a
that we
vertical.
can't
It was a
find.
vertical.
This one?
Maybe it's that one, yeah.
No, I was saying, what I was saying is that I think we're going to be driven more in the future by archiving of new content than the digitization of older content.
So are you saying that you think older content is going to drop off, or that new content is going to get larger over time?
Well, newer content is going to get larger over time, but
I would think.
but the stuff that people are converting may be starting to saturate, is what I'm saying.
Okay, because we've done our numbers, we in the National Archives and the BBC Archive, and, we all talk to each other. And at least based on our large content archives, because, there's a difference between us and smaller archives, but based on our archives, we're going to be migrating for the next 30 years. It's not going to drop. And the only reason it's not going, up faster is because we can't get more machines.
Does a 4 or 5% per year sound about right for you, for what you're doing?
No, I would say for us,
Yeah.
it's half of a percent.
Oh, really?
So we
Okay.
have 1.5 million moving image items. We have gotten through 4% in 9 years.
We should talk more on that, because I particularly want to look at the video.
I'll be happy to.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. And I probably should get off, because I think my time is done.
Great. Thanks for the great question. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please tap the like button and also subscribe to our channel to receive notifications when we add new content. For more information about us, please visit SMPTE.org. We'll see you next time.